Dr. Huber, or Joseph Huber, needs very little introduction. He sounded the alarm 20 years ago with James Robertson talking about the need for government-created money. And all serious present-day monetary students check out his book. I've thoroughly underlined the whole thing and annotated it. And I'm always learning. And I lean on Joseph. I'm wondering, is this clear? And sometimes if it's historical, I'm thinking, what would Zarlenga think? And nowadays I say, what would Joseph think? You know, and so for IMMR, for the AFJM, for AMI, we thank Joseph Huber, and he's very welcomed, and thank you very much. Oh, and he's gonna talk about stable coins, the amount of money. He began that conversation a few moments ago, and CBDCs. So, and the title change, I'll read it. The title change in the composition of the money supply from bank money to central bank digital currency and stable coins. The floor is yours, Dr. Huber. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for the welcome. And hello, everyone who is participating in this session. My presentation, wait a moment, please. Here we are. Here we go. To start with now, let's have a look at this taxonomy, this table. It's a taxonomy of the existing types of money. And it's tiered, which means there is a base level, and then there is a second tier or level, and the third tier, and another fourth class of monies.
Wait, Joseph, we don't have that slide up. It's the second slide. We're still at your title page. It might be frozen there a little bit.
Well, that's something I cannot understand, because I changed my slides. I'm now at the second. That's the first, that's the second, that's the third. I don't know why.
Maybe we should, maybe you could unshare your screen and then share your screen, and then just try to pinpoint to those slides again, if you could. I think that might be the best chance we have, because we're still caught on.
What is this now?
Unshare and share again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be a little red tab.
Yeah.
I think you have to unshare your
wait,
I did so.
Yeah, now that works. We're with you now. We're on base level, second, third tiers.
Do you see that chart?
Yes, we do.
The rise of bank money.
Yes,
I'm happy.
Yeah. Okay, we're good now.
And you want me to switch to the full screen?
You're fine now.
If you want to go full screen, that's your choice. I think we're okay.
Well, for me, it's not necessary. Okay.
Oh, that's even better. Thank you.
Okay. Now it's well. Let's start with base level money, and that's base money as you know it, as we know it. It's the money base. It's issued by the central banks, partly maybe still by some treasury. And it consists of solid cash, which is coins and central bank notes, and the central bank reserves, the money on account used by the banks, but unavailable to us, the money using public. And now soon coming on is central bank digital currency, CBDC, or you can also say sovereign digital currency, because it's issued by a sovereign body. And it's coming soon. It's coming within the next 5 years, I would say. In China, the thing will start in February next year already, on the occasion of the Winter Olympics. And that's And the characteristic of that money is that it need not be covered itself, which means it is not redeemable in other types of money. And building on that money base is bank money, the second tier. And as we all know, it's not based 100% on central bank money, but only to a very small fraction today. And then we have a third tier that came into existence during the last 10 to 30 or 40 years even. And there we find money market fund shares used as a deposit-like means of payment, but especially in financial transactions. Then we have those stable coins, which is a particular type of cryptocurrency. We have electronic money of various kind and also complementary currencies, mostly on a local level or as a special purpose money. And all these new money surrogates in a third tier here, all of these are based one-to-one on bank money and or cash equivalents. Cash equivalents meaning treasury bills, short-term treasury bills, or certificates of deposit, bank acceptances, and similar papers. And then we have another, not another tier, but say it's another class of money, and that is uncovered new monies, uncovered cryptocurrencies in particular. The best known is Bitcoin, but also uncovered complementary currencies. If these start to circulate in very large numbers and are used as a quasi-universal means of payment, then they would indeed be direct challenges of the money base and thus direct challenges to monetary sovereignty. And when looking at that table, there are two relationships of particular importance here. The first is the upside down relationship between base level money and second tier, between central bank money and bank money, because you would think that spontaneously, but also following the most teachings, that base level money, that's the most important money, it's the dominant money, and central banks are in control over the stock of money and so on. But that's not the case, because what we have today is actually has developed into a bank money regime. The dominant type of money today is bank money, rising throughout the last 20th century. And in mirror image here, you can see the decline in central bank money in public use. That's the cash, which is draining off, dwindling away. And this also holds true considering the operationally necessitated reserves. That's the really important thing. It's not how much reserves there are for various reasons to stop a crisis. So what the important thing is, how many reserves do banks actually need in order to create bank money at will? And seen historically in, say, about 1850, 60 or so, the reserve consisting of cash and central bank reserves consisted of about 50% in the United States and about 30% in the UK. And that throughout the 20th century was in decline down to 2% or so. Smaller banks need about 5 or 6%, but for most big banks and biggest banks, it's about 2% or less. And so that's an extreme form of fractional reserve banking, and that has meant growing scope for banks and the bank money's dominance, and these excess dynamics of the overshooting extension of bank money, credit, and debt, which is under no control anymore. And that results in monetary and financial vulnerability and proneness to crisis and so on. Now, most economists still think that it's the central bank that exerts some control over that, and the central banks themselves want to maintain that idea they are in control, but in fact they are not. Because the initiative is with the banks, and the central banks have little choice today but to react to accommodate the fact the banks have created beforehand. And this can particularly be seen in a banking crisis. Banking crisis most often basically is triggered by the fractionality of the reserves. So when the day of reckoning comes, so to say, and then central banks and governments have to support, they have to rescue the banks in various ways, which means that today, since several decades, we really have a private bank money regime in which the bank money has achieved a parastate status, so to say, and that's, in my opinion, that's really a constitutional monstrosity. Now let's consider the third tier. If you look in any of the widespread textbooks, economic textbooks, I think that third tier that doesn't exist. It's not supposed to exist so far, but it exists, and importantly so. And this can be seen, for example, here for the money market funds. And when the crisis in 2008 set in America, the money market funds exceeded the quantity of bank money and cash together. So that's quite important. And here you see the incredible takeoff of cryptocurrencies, total market capitalization, the total value of all cryptocurrencies, accounting now for $2.4 trillion US. In particular, as you can see here, that's the tremendous takeoff of stablecoins during the last 1 to 2 years, and that's of course not going to stop overnight, but that's a development continue. And this here, that shows that these developments, that's no longer the playground for say IT nerds or so, but it has become another established financial business, the business of financial institutions and other professional actors on financial markets. And so so this is a development. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong direction. Where are we? Here. If you consider the existing quantities in the United States of currency and checkable deposits on top, together it's $6.8 trillion, and more down when you see the trillions of money market funds and US dollar denominated cryptocurrencies, it's as much, it's even a little bit more. And so that development can no longer be dismissed as a negligible quantity or so, but it has become a truly very, very important development. And as I see it, this is a pattern, is a pattern that was seen before in history. I don't speak here of synchronized developments across the countries and so on, but it's simply a pattern. And the pattern consists of the fact that the incumbent money system, the dominant money, that poses problems, unsolvable within the given framework. And that's today the case with the bank money regime. And at the same time, we have a new type of money coming up. Nowadays, even several new types of money coming up, promising in some way to contribute to a solution of the problem, or to come with other advantages, such as being less expensive, faster, and so on. And by the way, another observation here, particularly in the last 10 to 20 years, we had a very remarkable variety of new proposals on monetary reform. Now, we didn't have that in the decades before. And that's, of course, all these together, these are signs foreboding a tidal change in the monetary system. Here, we had such a tidal change in the composition of the money supply in the history of modern money already 3 times. The first started in about 1650, 1670s, and lasted until the mid of the 19th century. And that was the rising tide of unregulated paper money. So as private banknotes, but also as government issued notes, royal bills, or principals, cashier's bills, and so on. And that, of course, then was the beginning appetite for sovereign coin. And the next such tidal change was starting in 1840, 50, 60s, until the first decades of the 20th century. That was the rising tide of central bank legal tender notes and the phasing out of private bank notes and treasury notes in a different speed and a different mode in different countries. And then the last such change, fundamental change that started about around 1890 plus minus, and throughout the last 20th century until today, nowadays, and that was the rising tide of bank money. And it was, as shown, the appetite for cash and also the appetite for central bank reserves. I repeat, not the really existing, for various reasons, existing quantity of reserves that are not needed by the banks, but the, so to say, the base level, the amount of base level money banks need to create their own bank money, and that is really very, very much down, and that's the important thing. And now that's why I think we are actually now in a period of transition from the old system to the new one, which bring the rise of CBDC and other types of new money, and then the incipient decline of bank money. You may ask, why? How can we be sure about that? So why am I so sure about thinking so? And the answers are as follows. The first is that digital tokens, that's a new type of money. It's as new as in its time paper money was, or money on account was. And it's a new technology, the distributed ledger technology and the blockchain. It has more additional features when compared with bank money. And in particular applications, it can clearly be said that that type of money is faster. So the payments are faster and also usable in cross-border payments very fast. And in particular applications also safer, less risky than conventional transactions, and accordingly they are cheaper. And that's striking arguments enough that over time digital tokens will be the next big thing. So then the question, why would we assume that central bank digital currency will be on the rise? And the answer is that the central banks need to reassert their position as the dominant players in the entire game, as the issuers of base money, and as being in control of the entire stock of money. Because if they don't succeed in doing so, they will disappear. They will then be redundant and will disappear. And then the question is that very probably monetary sovereignty will entirely disappear as well. It would, I would have to say. So, but I guess that will not happen. I'm convinced that the next dominant type of money will be CBDC, or however it would be called then. What you can see here is a map of all the important central banks across the world, developing in train of developing CBDC in some variety, and being themselves in an earlier or later stage of implementing CBDC. So that's on track, that will happen. It's simply a question, will it happen in next year or in 3 years or in 5 and 6 years? And then why do I think that private stablecoins will also be on the rise? Well, simply the answer is, well, markets go for it. As long as cryptocurrencies are not prohibited, as the Chinese government has done in last September. The Chinese have prohibited all transactions in cryptocurrencies. And as long as this is not done, So in a, say, pluralistic society, in an open market society and so on, the markets go for it, and fintechs and other financial players are pushing for it. And there is also potentially a broader based public for adopting that new type of money as payers and payees. And then, of course, if CBDC is on the rise and if private stablecoins are on the rise, then of course the share of bank money will be in decline. That is an immediate result of this, and the more so when CBDC will also be used as a coverage for new money surrogates. Now, more in detail, looking at this in more detail, what the upcoming transition from the bank money regime to CBDC and stablecoins, what it will look like more precisely, and whether really a sovereign digital currency will be the dominant type of money in competition with stablecoins. That largely depends on two set of conditions. And the one is the design principles of CBDC, and the other one is the regulation on the new money surrogates. Here you see a list of CBDC principles that are preferable from a sovereign money perspective. I cannot go here into all of the details of this. Simply a brief glance on it. There is, for example, a discussion, should CBDC be still account-based in the traditional sense, or should it be digital currency proper in the sense of a digital token, a tokenized variety? And in connection with this, and even much more importantly, is the question, shall we, the money-using public, shall we have direct access to digital token, or will it still be banks and payment service providers and similar bodies managing those tokens for us, with us still not having direct access to digital tokens? And so, of course, from our point of view, direct access to digital tokens is what we really would have, what we would prefer, similar to solid cash in the past. And I would also say a tokenized variety. I don't know whether I should say it is preferable. It's simply, it will be preferred by a broader public. The next question is whether there are restrictions on the availability of CBDC. And of course, my answer is no group-related restrictions. All group CBDC must be a universal means of payment. So all group must have access to it, and there should be no restrictions on the quantities available of CBDC. Relating to this is the anytime full convertibility between bank money and CBDC. Then point 7, if there is ever more CBDC, then there is and covered stablecoins, 100% covered stablecoins. Then there is no more need for the central banks and for the governments to maintain their warranties for bank money, so that can be reduced over time, and that will then definitely be the end of bank money. And then, for example, point number 10, CBDC opens the perspective of being able to issue in larger amounts genuine seigniorage, genuine debt-free seigniorage, rather than lending the money to the banks and other financial institutions. It could be issued in various ways as genuine debt-free seigniorage. So here now the last word on how to regulate third-level monies. They are already regulated in the United States as well as in Europe. The stable coins in the United States, not that much, or to my knowledge. And the regulation says that money market fund shares and e-monies, and now also stable coins, must maintain a near 100% coverage. It's 99.5% coverage for each unit they issue, and that the coverage need to exist of today, bank money and those cash equivalents. Yeah, and well, I skipped that.
Joseph, we have,
Yeah.
we're giving you 4 more minutes now.
Yeah, thank you. It's not necessary, thank you. The important thing for third level new money, the types of money, is to develop further the already existing regulation, which goes in the right direction, because it's the basic idea is these new types of money need 100% coverage. And if there is a CBDC on the rise, then that will be ever more CBDC coverage. And that will then actually be 100% reserve in a traditional sense. But we should be aware of the fact that is a problem with that types of money, as well as with indirect CBDC. Should that come? I don't hope so. There is always the danger that there is a future possibility of a return to fractional reserve banking, even if it starts at 100% base today. And so we have to keep an eye on this. And my concluding remark would be that I think that as monetary reformers, it's part of our mission to assist that process, to critically assist and assess that process of developing and implementing CBDC, and also pushing for making sure that stablecoins and other new types of money surrogates, they will not return to fractional reserve banking. Well, yeah, that's it, what I wanted to say.
We have 2 minutes. We'll catch up at the next break for each of the next 2 speakers. So we'll begin 5 minutes late for each of those 2. Joe Polito, I'm going to unmute you and I'll give you a question before we move on here. You're unmuted, Joe. Joe.
Thank you. The previous speaker and yourself are suggesting, I think, that CBDC is, like Kumhoff says, a route to the Chicago plan, that it accomplishes a lot of it. And this might be transformational in the future. It could enable the NEED Act. Is that true?
Basically, yes. Basically, yes. But I would say that it's not just 100%. The 100% thing applies to the new types of money surrogates. When there is direct CBDC, directly available CBDC, when we in our digital wallets, when we will have CBDC instead of a bank promise to have central bank money exchanged for that, that's not 100% reserve. Speaking of a reserve system will no longer make sense because we are in full possession of sovereign money then. That's not 100% reserve. So it's a slightly different meaning, but say starting from the idea, I agree with your question. It's indeed, it's a route. It can be a route towards a 100% system, yes.
Thank you.
Jeff, you're next, and if hopefully we'll have time for Peshwak too.
Hi, Joseph.
Hi.
Very sober analysis as always. I just wanted to ask you, how should, say, a digital token or a central bank digital currency be introduced to the monetary system? So, for example, the Progressive Money Canada proposal is that basically the central bank would just create money and put it directly into the government's account for the government to spend on programs. So could you speak to that?
Yes. Well, basically, I agree with that. And I learned from you that in Canada, still today, the central bank of the Bank of Canada, the central bank, is even legally allowed to directly absorb sovereign bonds from the government to a certain extent. And so that's an example that could be adopted across the world, of course. And I think what we have had the last 10 years, that kind of quantitative easing policy, that's coming close to that in that it is quantitative easing is a way of refinancing government expenditure, refinancing it, not directly financing it. But in a system when CBDC will become the dominant type of money, of course, money should not only be issued as is foreseen as by way of credit, but it should to a large extent, as much as possible, it can be given. It can be introduced by being spent by the government into circulation. Among the hurdles there is one, and that is the current accounting system, the GARP system, the generally agreed accountancy principles. And whenever the central bank transfers money to the government, when it's not the central bank profit, but when when it gives, then it has to be accounted as a loan, and that's a debt, and that poses a problem because the current rules for accounting do not allow to do that, and it needs a little change in the accounting practice to be able to really transfer money to the government free of debt. Because you see MMT today, they say,
Let's go on.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah. We'll come to that. And the next two speakers are going to be dealing with
Sorry.
CBDCs too. No, it's all good. And there's a lot more we need to learn and go over, and it's in the details, especially with accounting. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you very much, Dr. Huber, for being a part of this. And it's only going to continue, and thank you very much, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. If this video was helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for new video notifications. Please consider donating at monetary.org/donate. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at AMI Monetary or on our website